It is not by chance that right now you are hearing these words, because there are truths that do not knock with noise. They arrive as a feeling that cannot be ignored. You have already felt it, a slight tension in your chest, like when the sky has not yet rained but the air has already changed. You cannot name it, but your soul knows. Something is being awakened, not from the outside, but from very deep within, the place where you once learned to stay silent in order to survive. You still move through ordinary days like everyone else, but very small moments have begun to slip in. A short but haunting dream, a thought of your mother arriving without warning, a strange feeling when you hear her voice, when you step into the old house, when you sit quietly alone. There is no accusation, no clear memory, only the sense that something was never spoken. And you begin to understand that what is never spoken does not disappear. It simply learns how to hide. You may have wondered why there are spaces of silence around your mother that no one touches, why there are questions you never dared to ask, not because you lacked courage, but because you were afraid of breaking something fragile. You were taught to respect, to be silent, to move on. But your soul never forgot. It remembers every shift in the atmosphere, every time your mother's gaze drifted away, every time a story was cut short and never continued. There are silences not because there is nothing to say, but because there is too much, and saying it would cause everything to collapse. And you, from a very young age, learn to sense this without anyone explaining it. You learn to read the room, to read tone of voice, to read what was never written into words. That was not accidental. It was how your soul adapted to a truth that was never named. Now that truth is beginning to knock, not with fear, but with slow clarity. You are starting to realize that what you have felt all this time was not imagination. It was not that you were too sensitive. It was not that you thought too much. A veil has been drawn for a very long time, and it is becoming thinner. What was hidden was not meant to hurt you, but to protect someone who carried too much alone. There is a line that was written long ago, but only now begins to echo clearly in your heart. The Lord reveals his covenant to those who fear him. Psalm 25:14. Revelation does not come to those who are merely curious, but to those who are mature enough to withstand the light. And you have walked far enough, endured enough, that you no longer need darkness to protect you. Your mother is not only the woman who gave birth to you. She is a human being with a story longer than anything you have ever seen. There are chapters of her life built on quiet courage. There were decisions made when there was no one to ask for guidance. There were fears swallowed because speaking them felt like spreading the burden to others. You grew up within that influence, not through instruction, but through atmosphere. And over time, some things leaked through, not clearly enough for you to understand, but enough for your soul to register. Nameless tensions, misunderstandings that came and went without explanation. Some of the emotions you carried were not truly yours, but echoes of things that happened before you were old enough to remember. You carried them like clothing that did not fit, never knowing why it always felt tight. What is happening now is not exposure, it is permission. Permission for you to look back at your own journey with more mature eyes. Permission to understand that certain influences passed through your mother's life and touched you, not because she wanted them to, but because she too once stood at crossroads, without light to guide her. You are not being called into this story to judge. You are being called to understand. And understanding does not weaken you, it frees you. As truth begins to surface, you will realize that many of your past reactions that once made you blame yourself were actually survival efforts of a sensitive soul. You felt too much, too early, and that is precisely what prepared you for this moment. There is something important you need to know from the beginning. Nothing is being opened without protection. You are not entering unfamiliar ground alone. The clarity that is coming is not here to take anything away, but to place everything where it truly belongs. What has been hidden for too long loses its power when it is faced directly, and you are being guided toward that moment, step by step, without rushing, without force. Pay attention to what is happening within you right now, not to analyze, only to notice. A sense of curiosity, a little anxiety, a strange and gentle relief. These are signs of the soul recognizing that it is about to be spoken in the language of truth. This journey does not begin with answers, but with a willingness to ask questions. You have lived long enough guessing at empty spaces. Now, light is beginning to filter in, not blinding, but just enough for you to see the path ahead. And as you walk, you will understand that everything you ever felt had a reason, not to bind you to the past, but to free you from what you never had words to name. Silence begins to speak to you in its own way, not through words, but through memory. Images you thought had faded suddenly return, incomplete, unclear, but enough to make you feel that something was never placed where it belonged. You remember evenings that were quieter than usual, moments when your mother sat for a long time without saying anything, her eyes fixed on some distant point. Back then you were too young to ask, and also too sensitive to ask. You learned to accept silence as a part of love. You once thought you had forgotten, but the soul does not forget what shaped it. It only stores it away. And now, as the veil grows thinner, what was stored begins to stir, not to accuse, but to be acknowledged. You realize that some of your emotions appeared very early, before you had language to name them: alertness, sensitivity to the atmosphere around you, the ability to sense a change in others through a single sigh. You did not learn these things from books. You learned them by living in a space where emotions were not spoken, but were always present. Your mother did not intend to teach you this way. She was only trying to keep everything standing with what she had, and sometimes to keep things from collapsing. People have to hide parts of themselves. There are things you are beginning to connect. The tensions between you and your mother in recent years that seem to have no clear cause. Moments when the two of you misunderstood each other over a very small sentence. Times when you felt you reacted too strongly, then blamed yourself for thinking you had gone too far. But now you look back and see a wider picture. You were not only reacting to the present, you were reacting to the aftershocks of a past that was never named. You begin to understand that truth does not always live in what happened, but in what was never spoken. Those empty spaces have their own way of shaping the people who live within them. They create questions without words, feelings without origin, defensive reflexes formed very early, and you carried them with you, not because you were weak, but because you were deeply loyal to what you felt. Something important is being placed gently but firmly in your heart. Right now, nothing in this journey is outside the sight of the one who created you. Even the darkness is not dark to him. Psalm 139. This means there is no memory too tangled, no silence too deep, no fear too small to be overlooked. What you are about to see has always been seen. What you are about to understand has always been fully understood. This brings a strange kind of comfort, because if everything has always existed within that light, then you do not need to fear when that light touches your life. You are not being led into truth to be overwhelmed. You are being guided step by step, with enough protection for you to remain standing. What is about to be revealed does not come to take away your respect for your mother, but to place that respect on the foundation of truth. You begin to see your mother not only through the eyes of a child, but through the eyes of a grown person trying to understand another human being. You see the exhaustion she never spoke of, the times she chose silence instead of explanation, the moments she held herself together to keep an image of stability for the family, and you realize that there were things she did not hide to control you. but because she did not know how to speak them without causing more pain. These realizations do not arrive all at once. They come in fragments, like old pieces found in a box that has not been opened for a long time. Each piece is not enough to tell the whole story, but enough to change how you see the entire picture. You begin to see that what you once called conflict may have been the collision of two pains that were never named. There are moments when you want to ask directly. There are moments when you feel the time is not yet right, and you learn to sit with that feeling, without pushing, without avoiding, because something within you knows that truth needs space to step forward on its own. It does not respond well to force. It needs respect, like a wound that requires time to reveal itself without being torn open. In that quiet space, you begin to notice something else. You are not only being invited to understand your mother, you are being invited to understand yourself, your reactions, your fears with no clear origin, the limits you placed on yourself to feel safe. Everything is connected. And when those connections begin to come into focus, you feel lighter, not because everything is resolved, but because you no longer have to guess in the dark. You are standing at a very special threshold. There are no clear answers yet, but a new certainty is forming, that you were not wrong to feel what you felt, that your soul has always done its job well to warn, to remember, to protect, and now, when you are strong enough to understand, it begins to return to you what it has been holding for so long. Let this process unfold at its own pace. There is no need to rush, no need to force yourself to understand everything at once. Truth is not a blow, it is a current, and you are moving within that current, guided by a hand that has never left you, even in the years when you did not know you were being guided. There is a very subtle moment when you realize that you are no longer just an observer. You are being invited to step into the center of your own life story, not to carry more responsibility, but to stop carrying invisible questions that have followed you for too long. This pull is not loud. It is like standing before a door that has been closed for many years. And for the first time you notice that the handle is still warm, as if someone had just been standing on the other side. You begin to notice that the signals around you become clearer, not miracles, but ordered coincidence, a sentence you happen to hear that touches exactly what you are thinking, a passage of scripture you did not search for, but that appears at just the right moment, a gentle repetition, as if someone is nodding in confirmation that you are not imagining everything. Surely the Lord God does nothing unless he reveals his purpose beforehand. Amos 3:7. That line no longer stays on the page. It rises and steps into your life. Here, you are reminded of something very important. Revelation is not a reward for perfection, but a gift for readiness. You do not need to understand everything. You only need to be honest enough to admit that something within you is resonating as you hear these words. And if you are reading or listening to this and feel as if someone is speaking directly into your heart, that is not by chance. You do not need to explain. Just leave a small sign that you are present, that you are listening, that presence matters more than you think. One thing is becoming clearer. You have been prepared for this moment for a very long time. Not through knowledge, but through experience. The times you felt you had to grow up faster than others. The moments you carried the emotions of people around you without knowing why. The times you became the peacemaker, the one who understood before being explained to. None of these made you weaker. They trained you to see deeply, to feel subtly, and to stand firm when truth is no longer shielded. Your mother, in this story, does not stand as a secret to be exposed, but as the center of a complex picture. She is both protector and wounded one. There are things she did out of love and things she did out of fear, and from the outside, those two can look very similar. You begin to understand that sensing this contradiction is not betrayal. but the deepest honesty of your soul. At this stage, truth does not come as specific information. It comes as a shift within you. The way you think about old arguments, the way you remember moments when the two of you misunderstood each other. You no longer see them as evidence of brokenness, but as signs of things that were never spoken. And within that shift, a gentle relief appears. Not large, but enough for you to breathe a little deeper. You may notice that you no longer want to avoid thoughts about your mother the way you once did. Not because everything is fine, but because you no longer need avoidance to protect yourself. You are strong enough to stay with the question without needing the answer yet. This is a rare form of maturity, and you have reached it without needing anyone to hand you a certificate. If these words are touching you, if you feel a resonance you cannot quite name, allow yourself to stay connected to this current, not because of the storyteller, but because this journey is reflecting you. And if you want to keep walking with this stream of thought, stay, follow, so that when deeper layers are opened, you do not have to start again from the beginning. There are things that only truly matter when they are heard in full. You are standing at the boundary between knowing and understanding. Knowing is having information. Understanding is allowing that information to change how you live. And what is happening now leans toward the second. You begin to look back at your choices with more compassion. You realize that many times you reacted strongly, not because you were difficult, but because there are nerves within you that grew accustomed to staying alert. This does not make you wrong. It only says that you once lived in an environment that required that alertness. This truth does not distance you from your mother. On the contrary, it opens the possibility of drawing closer in a new way, not based on roles or expectations, but on human understanding. You do not need to say anything to your mother right now. Simply seeing her through a different layer of awareness is already a significant shift. The greatest changes often begin in silence. You may feel mixed emotions. A bit of sadness for what was never spoken, a bit of relief because there is finally a reason for feelings you have carried for so long, a bit of anxiety because you do not know what will be open next. All of it makes sense. No emotion needs to be fixed immediately. They only need to be acknowledged. Remember this as you continue forward. You are not being pulled into truth to lose something precious. You are being guided into truth to return everything to its original shape. Love does not disappear when truth appears. It simply becomes more real. And when you are ready, when your breathing has settled after these first stirrings, the path ahead will begin to appear more clearly. Not with blinding light, but with steady footsteps, one step at a time, enough to keep you from losing your way. There comes a point in this journey where you begin to see your mother not only through memory, but through the full presence of a human being who has lived through far more than you ever knew. Not because she suddenly changed, but because the way you look has changed. Details that were once overlooked now stay still long enough for you to realize they were always there. The way she reacts quickly to very small things, the way she avoids questions that seem harmless, the way she is so strong that she does not allow herself to be weak, even when she is alone. You begin to understand that some strengths are formed out of survival, not choice. Your mother had to stay standing during seasons where if she stopped, everything could collapse. And when a person becomes used to holding everything together, they carry that habit with them for a very long time, sometimes for a lifetime. You no longer see her actions as confusing, but as traces of a journey that never truly rested. Small memories suddenly become sharper, times when she seemed overly controlling, moments when she chose silence instead of explanation, instances when she said things that sounded distant, even though you knew in your heart she did not want to push you away. Before, you wondered if you had done something wrong. Now that question steps back, making room for a deeper one. What caused her to live this way? And then, an important realization begins to form. Not all wounds come from cruelty. Some wounds are passed on simply because they were never healed. Your mother carried fractures within her that were never named, never touched, and she tried to live in a way that would keep those fractures from hurting anyone else. But fractures, when left unattended, find their own way to speak. You realize that the truth slowly coming into view is not meant to make you look at your mother with suspicion, but to see her more fully, with eyes that can hold both love and truth, both respect and clarity. These things do not cancel each other out. They only ask you to grow more mature in the way you love. A line from Scripture arrives like a timely whisper. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147:3. This line does not come to promise an instant miracle. It comes to name the process that is unfolding. Healing does not begin with forgetting. It begins with looking directly at what broke, with enough gentleness that it does not break further. You begin to notice that some of your reactions are not personality, but reflex. They were learned very early, in an environment where emotions had to be anticipated to stay safe. You no longer blame yourself when you see that you did the best you could with what you had at the time, and you begin to extend that same grace to your mother, not because she was perfect, but because she too did the best she could in her circumstances. These thoughts do not weaken you. On the contrary, they bring a new steadiness. When you understand that much of the tension between you did not come from the present, but from old layers that were never removed, you no longer feel the need to react immediately. You begin to find a pause. That pause is not distance, but space for wisdom to appear. You may notice that in recent conversations, you listen more, not to find fault, but to sense. You hear what your mother says, but you also hear what she does not say. You realize that some stories she never told were not because she did not trust you, but because she never had the chance to tell them even to herself. Some pain can only be set down when the one carrying it feels safe. And here, another truth becomes clear. You are not placed in this position to fix your mother. You are not called to carry what is not yours. You are called to stand firmly in your own truth, so that your presence becomes a safe space. No grand advice, no heavy conversations, just the steadiness of someone who no longer runs from what they feel. This change does not happen loudly. It happens in the way you breathe when tension arises, in the way you choose silence instead of argument, in the way you recognize when a conversation needs to stop, so it does not become a new wound. These small changes carry great power because they break old patterns without direct confrontation. You may feel sadness when you look back at what was never said, at what could have been different if things had been shared earlier. That sadness is real, and it does not make you weak. It only shows that you are safe enough to grieve without being trapped in grief. You do not return to relive the past. You return to understand it, and then move forward. What matters most at this stage is that you begin to trust your intuition in a new way, not as tense vigilance, but as calm discernment. You no longer need to prove that you are right. You only need to know that what you feel has a foundation. And when you stand firmly in that, you are no longer easily pulled into old emotional cycles. This journey has not yet reached its deepest part, but the foundation is being laid with great strength. You are learning to see without judging, to understand without justifying, to love without losing yourself. This is a maturity not everyone reaches, and you did not reach it by luck. You reached it because you stayed with what was uncomfortable long enough for it to lose its control over you. As you continue forward, other layers will slowly open, not faster than you can handle, not deeper than you can stand. Everything is being arranged in an order you do not need to fully understand right now. Just know this: you are not going in the wrong direction. You are moving straight into the center of truth, where healing begins with recognition. There is a deeper layer of truth that you begin to sense, not through logic, but through intuition refined over the years. It appears as a subtle heaviness that is hard to explain when you think about certain seasons in your mother's life. Not every memory comes with clear images, but there are moments that carry a strange aftertaste, as if the air was always more tense than usual, even though no one ever spoke of the reason. You begin to realize that there were seasons when your mother was not only fighting circumstances, but fighting invisible pressures that clung to her mind and emotions. Times when she was exhausted yet still had to remain standing. Moments when she made decisions without being fully free inside, not because she was weak, but because certain influences entered her life when she was most vulnerable, and she did not know what she had opened the door to. This understanding does not come to frighten you. On the contrary, it brings clarity, because when the nature of a battle is named correctly, it loses its vague power. You understand that some reactions, some words, some choices your mother made in the past did not fully come from who she truly was. They were colored by mental and spiritual pressures she was never taught how to recognize. Perhaps now you understand why your mother sometimes reacted so strongly to very small things. Why there were fears that did not match the present situation. Why she controlled what did not need to be controlled, or avoided conversations that could have brought relief. These things were not random. They were traces of a silent battle, where she was both the soldier and the one who did not know she was on the battlefield. And you, from a very young age, sensed this, not through language, but through your body. There were days you walked into the house and knew it was not the time to ask questions. Moments when you adjusted yourself, not because anyone asked you to, but because you felt the need to keep everything stable. No one taught you this with words. You learned it by observing the tension in the space. Now, as you look back, you no longer blame yourself for living in constant alertness. You understand that your soul read signals your conscious mind could not yet decode. And you also understand that you did not imagine that battle. We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against unseen forces. Ephesians 6:12. This line no longer feels abstract. It precisely describes what quietly entered your family life during the years you were too young to name it. What matters is that this awareness does not pull you toward accusation. It moves you toward discernment. You no longer see your mother as the source of every difficulty, but as someone who stood on the front lines of a battle she was never fully equipped for. That changes everything about how you feel. Instead of anger, you sense exhaustion. Instead of resentment, you feel compassion. And at the same time, you see more clearly the boundaries that need to be set so the past does not continue shaping the future. You may begin to remember old dreams, images that were not connected, yet always carried a sense of warning. Times when you woke with unease and did not know why. You once pushed them aside, thinking you were overthinking. Now you understand that this was how the soul speaks when the mind is not yet ready to listen. Those dreams did not come to scare you. They came to keep you alert. You may also notice that at certain points in your own life, you faced tendencies that mirrored your mother in surprising ways. Familiar reactions, nameless fears, repeating patterns you once swore you would never carry. This does not disappoint you in yourself. It simply confirms that what is not healed tends to find a way forward. But there is one very important difference here. You are seeing now. You are no longer living unconsciously. And that difference changes everything. When you see, you have choice. When you understand, you have the ability to pause. Old patterns lose their power the moment they are placed under the light of awareness. You do not need to confront your mother about these things. Not now, not directly. There are battles that are not won through argument, but through inner stability. When you stand steady, no longer pulled into familiar reactions, You have already begun to change the dynamic. No declarations are needed. No explanations are required. Your difference becomes the answer on its own. You also begin to understand that love is not always closeness without boundaries. Sometimes love is clarity strong enough to prevent old influences from continuing through you. This does not make you cold, it makes you safe. And when you are safe, you can love without losing yourself. At this stage, you may feel both stronger and more vulnerable. Stronger because you understand what is happening. More vulnerable because that understanding opens emotions you once did not allow yourself to touch. Both are signs of growth. You do not need to choose one or the other. You can carry both at the same time. Remember this: you were not brought into this journey to carry someone else's battle. You were brought into it to stop that battle from continuing through you unconsciously. When you stop, the chain reaction stops. When you stand firm, something very old begins to lose its place. You are entering a very important part of the journey, not loud, not dramatic, but decisive. What you understand here will shape how you step into what comes next, not with fear, but with clarity, not with resistance, but with the power of choice returned to you. And when you are ready to move forward, you will see that you are not only being protected, but being placed in your rightful position within a larger picture, a position where understanding becomes a shield and truth becomes the foundation. There comes a moment in this journey when everything seems to pause, not because your path is blocked, but because a foundation is being laid. You feel it as a new steadiness inside, not loud, not exciting, but deeply solid. Your thoughts no longer run in endless circles. Emotions come and go, but they do not carry you away. You begin to stand more upright within yourself, as if someone has just realigned the spine of your soul. At the center of this steadiness, there is a recurring sign, not in a cheap, mystical way, but in a very human way. You notice it in time, in rhythm, in moments you once thought were random. The number 444 begins to appear, not to spark curiosity, but to confirm. It feels like a gentle stamp pressed into the ground beneath your feet, saying that this is a safe place to pause, to breathe, and to see clearly. 444 is not a promise that everything will be easy. It is the seal of a foundation. When the foundation is strong, the house can stand. When the soul is grounded, new truth does not knock you down. This number carries the meaning of protection and divine order, reminding you that you are not walking in chaos. Even if the story has many layers and hidden corners, what is being built within you right now is an anchor that is not easily shaken. You begin to realize that for many years, you lived in a state of constant readiness, not because you enjoyed tension, but because your environment once demanded it. You became used to reading situations, guessing emotions, adjusting yourself to avoid conflict. That state helped you survive, but it also meant you never truly rested. And now, for the first time, you feel that you can place your feet on the ground without curling inward. The protection you sense does not come from everything outside changing all at once. It comes from having structure inside. When a tense word appears, you no longer react the way you once did. When a familiar look makes you hesitate, you notice it, but you do not let it control you. You begin to understand that real strength does not lie in controlling circumstances, but in not allowing circumstances to control you. Something very important happens here. You no longer feel the need to constantly explain yourself. You do not have to prove that your feelings are valid. You also do not need to convince anyone to understand you right away. This new steadiness naturally makes you more selective with your energy, not because you are closing yourself off, but because you are no longer willing to drain yourself in old loops. When you look back at your relationship with your mother from this place, You see more clearly the line between love and self-erasure. Before, you may have confused the two. You thought loving meant enduring, understanding for both sides, carrying what was not yours. Now you understand that real love needs a foundation. Without a foundation, love turns into exhaustion, and exhaustion cannot nourish anyone. This steadiness also helps you recognize what does not belong to you. The emotions you once carried for others, the responsibilities you took on that no one ever gave you, the blame you accepted for things you did not cause. One by one, they begin to slip from your hands, not because you throw them away, but because you no longer hold them by reflex. You may notice a new, quiet question forming inside you. What truly belongs to me? This question is not selfish. It is essential, because only when you know what is yours can you know what should no longer be carried. And when you set clear boundaries, you do not cut off love. You protect it from being distorted. You may also realize that lately, you sleep more deeply, or you wake up with a different feeling, not because all problems have disappeared, but because your nervous system is beginning to trust that it no longer has to stay on constant alert. This trust does not come from outside. It comes from your soul, recognizing that it finally has a foundation to rest on. In this way, the number 444 is not something to chase. It is a confirmation that you are aligning with your true axis. And if this number resonates with you, if you have seen it appear during moments when you needed reassurance that you were not alone, simply acknowledge it. You do not need to explain it to anyone. Just be honest with yourself about that resonance. Here, a very gentle invitation is offered, not a loud call, but an opening. If you are willing, share the number that has made you feel most supported on this journey, not to follow a trend, but to acknowledge that you are paying attention to what lifts you up, rather than what once pulled you down. That attention shifts your direction more than you might realize. When you focus on stability, you create more stability. When you focus on protection, you begin to live like someone who is protected. And this directly affects how you step into the next difficult interactions, especially with your mother. You no longer enter conversations ready to defend yourself. You enter with presence. If the atmosphere is tense, you notice it without absorbing it. If words carry old pressure, you hear them without letting them trigger familiar reactions. This is not coldness. This is maturity built on a new foundation. Your mother may not change right away. She may still react in old ways. But the difference is this: you are no longer pulled along. And when one person in a system stops, the whole system begins to shift. Not immediately, but inevitably. Because old patterns only survive when everyone continues to play the same role. You are changing your role, not through declarations, but through how you stand. And how you stand now is different, more grounded, clearer, less apologetic for things that do not require apology, less doubtful of your own perceptions. This is the foundation you will need for the deeper parts of the journey, where truth is not only understood, but lived. Let this steadiness sink into you. There is nothing more you need to do. Simply stay with it long enough for it to become natural, because once the foundation has been laid, what is built upon it will no longer collapse easily. When the foundation is firm, you begin to sense a very quiet calling. No one speaks loudly. There is no command, only a gentle pull to stand in your rightful place. Not out front to lead, and not behind to hide, but in the space between what has happened and what is forming. You realize that all this time you have been standing there unconsciously, but now you stand with awareness, no longer driven by survival instinct. You begin to see that moments of tension between you and your mother no longer take the same shape. They still appear, but they no longer shake you. When a familiar sentence is spoken, you do not react immediately. You hear it, but you do not absorb it. You feel it, but you do not dissolve into it. A small pause appears between stimulus and response, and within that pause, you choose to stay grounded instead of snapping back. That pause changes many things. It allows you to see that most clashes do not come from the present, but from old fears being touched. When you do not respond in the old way, the conversation cannot continue along its familiar track. Not because you control the situation, but because you no longer feed energy into that loop. And a loop, when it is no longer fed, begins to weaken on its own. You also begin to understand that you are being invited to intercede, not with loud words, but with steady presence. Some battles are not won by saying the right thing, but by standing in the right way. When you no longer allow fear to guide your behavior, you quietly become an anchor. Not an anchor holding others, but an anchor holding yourself steady amid emotional waves. In this position, you begin to feel a different kind of strength, not loud, not showy. It is the strength of someone who knows they could leave, but chooses to stay. Not out of obligation, but out of freedom. You are not staying to endure. You are staying because you are no longer forced by old patterns. This creates a very subtle yet very deep difference. There will be moments when your heart feels heavy, not because you are becoming weaker, but because you are touching layers of emotion you once had to bypass in order to survive. Old sadness, nameless regrets, moments when you wished things could have been different. You no longer push them away. You let them pass through without letting them rule you, without suppressing them. That is how they lose their power. In those moments, a line rises like a reminder, not to push you forward, but to keep you standing upright. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, for the Lord is with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. Courage here is not confrontation, but refusing to turn away from truth when it is uncomfortable. And you are doing that in very small steps. You realize that standing in the gap does not mean you must fix everything. It means you no longer let everything pass through you unconsciously. You choose to live with awareness, where every reaction can be adjusted, where every emotion is listened to before being acted upon. This does not slow you down. It makes you more precise. Your mother may not yet understand what is changing. She may still feel that you are more distant or simply different, but that difference is not distance. It is a healthy boundary, and healthy boundaries, though uncomfortable at first, always create safer space for both sides in the end. You do not need to explain this. Time and consistency will do the rest. You also begin to see clearly that you are no longer driven to fix your mother. That desire, even when rooted in love, still carries tension. When you set it down, you feel lighter. You understand that lasting change does not come from pressure, but from one person in the system beginning to live differently. And that person, right now, is you. The shift in how you stand begins to spread into other relationships as well. You notice that you are less triggered by careless words, less driven to prove your worth, less afraid that if you stop playing your familiar role, everything will fall apart. Those fears once had a reason to exist, but they are no longer necessary. You are no longer living in the context that created them. At this stage, you may feel tired in a different way, not tired from tension, but tired from learning how to live without relying on the adrenaline of constant alertness. This is a very real adjustment process. Allow yourself to rest, not to avoid, but to integrate what has changed. Maturity needs time to settle into the body, not just into thought. You are doing something very few people dare to do. You are stopping midstream to change your own direction, not through loud declarations, but through small and consistent presence. This has a greater impact than you realize, not only for now, but for what comes after. Because when one person learns to stand firmly in their own truth, they do not only free themselves, they open a path for others to see that it is possible. This journey is not over, but you have passed a point of no return, not because you cannot pretend anymore, but because you no longer want to. You have tasted clarity, and your soul does not want to return to shadow. When you are ready to move forward, other layers will open, not to test you, but to complete what is being built, and you will step into that part not with tension, but with a steadiness that has already been proven from within. When you have stood steadily in the gap long enough, something else begins to reveal itself, no longer centered only on you and your mother, but opening out behind you, your lineage, stories that were never fully told, choices repeated across generations, as if a path had already been drawn, and whoever stepped onto it walked in nearly the same way, without ever agreeing to it. You do not think about this as a theory. You feel it through intuition, through the strange familiarity when you hear old stories, through the resonance between your mother's fears and the fears that once appeared in you. You begin to realize that some things did not start in your lifetime, but flowed through you. Emotional patterns, ways of facing hardship, ways of staying silent when support was needed. These things are not anyone's fault. They are unnamed inheritances. And when an inheritance is not named, it continues to operate as if it were the only normal way to exist. What makes you different is not that you are better than those who came before. It is that you are stopping long enough to see. That pause breaks momentum. You are no longer pulled by old reflexes simply because they are familiar. You begin to ask questions that no one before had the space to ask. Not questions of blame, but questions of awakening. Where did this come from? And does it need to go any further? You look at your mother within that context, and your compassion deepens another layer. She was not only someone who influenced you, she was also someone who carried influences from before her, sometimes very far back, sometimes from circumstances no one in the family even mentions anymore. You see more clearly that much of what she carried was not always choice, but continuation. And when someone continues long enough, they can forget that choosing differently is still possible. Here, your role becomes clearer than ever, not as the one who carries it all, but as the one who ends unconscious continuation. You do not need to confront the past. You only need to stop giving it permission to control the present. This may sound simple, but in reality, it requires quiet courage. Courage to not follow habit. Courage to not react in familiar ways. Courage to endure the sense of not fully fitting into the old role anymore. You may feel like you are standing between two worlds, no longer fully belonging to the old way, but not yet seeing the full shape of the new. This is a very real transition state. It can make you tired, not because you are doing too much, but because you are carrying new awareness in an environment that has not yet changed with you. What matters is that you do not mistake this tiredness for being on the wrong path. This state appears when the old is retreating and the new is learning how to stand. You may also begin to see more clearly the cycles you once only sensed vaguely. Periods in the family when everything seems to repeat. Tension rises, misunderstandings appear, silence stretches on, then everyone pretends nothing happened. You see this cycle not only in your mother's life, but in the stories of other relatives. And for the first time, you no longer feel helpless before it. You realize that a cycle continues only when everyone participates unconsciously. You do not need to pull anyone out of that cycle. That usually backfires. What you are doing, very quietly, is stepping out of it. You no longer play the familiar role. You no longer react on the old rhythm. And that difference, though confusing at first for those around you, will eventually require the whole system to adjust. Not because you force it, but because there is no longer enough energy to keep everything the same. At times like this, you may feel lonely in a new way. Not lonely because no one is near you, but because you are seeing things others are not yet ready to see. This feeling is real, and it does not mean you are separating from your family. It simply means you are one step ahead in awareness. And being one step ahead always carries temporary loneliness. What matters is that you do not go back just to feel less alone. You do not shrink yourself to fit the old mold again. You have gone too far into truth to pretend you do not see anymore. And even if you sometimes wish things were simpler, you know very clearly that true simplicity only comes after complexity has been faced. You also begin to understand that healing a lineage is not a dramatic act that happens in one moment. It happens through small choices repeated again and again. How you speak when tension appears. How you pause when you notice you are about to react from old habit. How you allow yourself to rest without guilt. These things may seem ordinary, but they are exactly where old cycles lose their power. You may begin to feel a very gentle but very clear sense of responsibility. Not the responsibility to do everything right, but the responsibility to live honestly with what you have seen. When you live honestly, you do not only change your present, you change the possibilities of the future. What you do not pass on stops with you. And that is a profound act of love, even if no one names it. You do not need to declare that you are healing your lineage. You only need to keep standing firmly in what you have understood. Your consistency is the evidence. Your calm is the message. Your difference is the sign that a new direction has opened, even if no one has named it yet. When you look ahead, the path no longer feels as unclear as before. It is still not fully visible, but you see enough to step forward. And more importantly, you are no longer pulled backward by invisible forces that once made you doubt yourself. You know where you are and why you are there. The next part of the journey will invite you into living with this truth each day, not as a burden, but as a foundation, not to stay alert, but to live lighter, clearer, and more fully present in your own life. When the truth has been seen and is no longer pushed away, a natural question appears about how to live with it each day, not living in vigilance and not living in replay, but living with enough awareness to avoid returning to old paths. You begin to realize that real change does not happen in big moments, but in very small choices, repeated again and again, often unnoticed. Your mornings are not very different from before. You still wake up, still do familiar things, but something inside has changed. You no longer rush into the day with unconscious tension. You pause, even for a few seconds, to sense where you are. In that pause, a line appears softly but clearly. The word of the Lord is a lamp for my feet, a light on my path. Psalm 119, 105. You understand that light does not need to shine far. It only needs to be enough for the next step. You no longer force yourself to understand everything. You allow clarity to arrive in parts at the right time. When a conversation with your mother begins to touch sensitive places, you no longer try to control the outcome. You pay attention to your breathing. You notice when your body begins to tighten, and instead of reacting immediately, you choose to slow down. This slowness is not avoidance, it is space, so you are not pulled into old reflexes. There are days you do very well. There are days you notice that you slipped back a little, but unlike before, you do not blame yourself. You see it as information. Each time you notice, you learn a little more about yourself, about the places that are still sensitive, about what still needs care. The patience you now give yourself is exactly what you lacked for many years. You also begin to notice very ordinary signs that show you are moving in the right direction. You are no longer drawn into meaningless conversations. You know when to stop. You choose carefully where you place your energy, not because you are selfish, but because you understand that your energy is no longer meant to be spent on loops that do not bring life. You do not cut off connection. You simply stop allowing chaos to pass through you. You may find yourself becoming calmer, but not colder. You still feel deeply, but emotions no longer carry you away. You still love your mother, but you no longer lose yourself in the effort to make everything okay. You understand that love does not mean enduring forever. Love can be very gentle and also very clear. In moments when you feel tired, you do not ask yourself whether you are doing enough. You ask whether you are listening. Listening to your body, listening to your limits, listening to the intuition that brought you here. You do not need to always be strong. You only need to be real. And that truth, even when fragile, is more durable than any defense you once built. You also realize that the change in you begins to create small ripples around you, not always positive right away. There may be confusion, there may be mild resistance, but one thing cannot be denied: you are no longer easily swept away. And when you stand firm, those around you are forced to adjust how they relate, whether they are aware of it or not. This requires you to trust the process, even when you do not yet see clear results. You do not need everything to be resolved to know you are on the right path. You only need to look at how you feel in your body. Less tense, less defensive, less questioning whether you are wrong. These signs are real. They are living evidence of transformation. You begin to understand that awareness does not make life heavier. It makes life simpler in a very deep way. You no longer have to interpret everything. You no longer have to read every signal to protect yourself. You know when to speak, when to be silent, and most importantly, when to step away from a space that no longer fits you. You may have moments when you remember your old self, the one who was always ready to endure, always trying to keep everything stable. You do not look down on that version of you. You know that version did everything possible to bring you here, but you also know that you no longer need to live that way. You have another choice now, and you are using that choice one day at a time. When you look ahead, you no longer wait for a dramatic breakthrough or a grand confirmation. You understand that the real change has already happened at a deeper level. It lives in how you live, how you respond, how you care for yourself and for the relationships that matter most. No one needs to name it for it to be real. The final part of this journey does not bring a dramatic ending. It brings confirmation. Confirmation that you did not take a wrong path. Confirmation that truth, even when difficult, has made you freer rather than bound. And confirmation that what is being built within you is strong enough to support not only you, but the most important connections in your life. A very different kind of silence settles over you as you reach this point. Not the silence of avoidance, and not the emptiness of exhaustion, but the silence of something finally being placed where it belongs. You feel it in the way you sit down without tightening your body, in the way you think about your mother without being pulled back into old emotions, in the way you look back on the journey and realize you are no longer the person who began it. There is no sense of victory and no sense of defeat. There is only clarity. Clarity that you did not imagine what you felt. Clarity that truth, when faced directly, does not destroy love. It refines it. Clarity that what once made you doubt yourself no longer holds the same power. You no longer need to reassure yourself. You know. The bond between you and your mother does not disappear. It changes form. It is no longer built on silent endurance, but on conscious presence. You do not need to say everything for that bond to be real. The simple fact that you no longer carry emotions that were never yours is already a profound shift. Not everyone may notice it right away, but you do, and that is enough. You begin to see that your mother, whether she knows it or not, is also benefiting from this change, not because you are doing something for her, but because you have stopped reacting in the old ways. When you no longer absorb invisible pressure, It no longer passes through as easily. When you no longer play the familiar role, old patterns lose their anchor. No confrontation is needed. No long explanations are required. The difference speaks for itself. There may still be hard days. There may still be moments when you feel pulled back, but they no longer define you. You know you can return to your center. You know you can pause. You know you can choose differently. This knowing does not live only in your mind. It lives in your body. And once something lives in the body, it is not easily taken away. You also look at yourself with different eyes, no longer with judgment for having reacted, for having been afraid, for having stayed silent too long. You see a person who did the best they could with what they had, and you respect that person. This respect does not trap you in the past. It allows you to move forward without cutting off any part of yourself. This journey does not make you perfect. It makes you more real. Someone who knows when to speak and when to be silent. Someone who knows when to stay and when to leave. Someone who no longer measures their worth by how much they can endure. Someone who no longer confuses love with self-erasure. This is not an achievement to display, but a state to live from. You may notice that from here on, you move through life with a different rhythm. Slower where slowness is needed. Clearer where things were once blurred. You no longer need to read every signal to feel safe. You carry that safety from within, and this changes how you show up in every relationship, not only with your mother. If there is one thing to hold on to after all of this, it is this. You have learned to trust your inner experience without needing to prove it. You have learned to stand in truth without needing to fight. You have learned to love without erasing yourself. These lessons did not come from a single moment. They came because you dared to stay with yourself through each difficult layer. The road ahead is not a road without challenges, but it is a road where you no longer walk in the shadow of doubt. You know where you are, you know why you are standing there, and you know you do not need to return to old patterns to belong. You carry that belonging within yourself. This journey closes not because everything is finished, but because a cycle has completed. A cycle of living unconsciously, a cycle of carrying what was never yours, a cycle of staying silent in order to survive. A new cycle has begun, not loud, not dramatic, but steady. And you step into it not as someone running from the past, but as someone who understands it and is no longer led by it. No one needs to applaud this moment. No external marker is required. The change has happened in the place that matters most. You feel it in the way you breathe, the way you stand, the way you are present, and from this point on, everything you build will rest on the foundation of truth, not endurance. You have gone far enough that you do not need to turn back, and you are strong enough that you do not fear what comes next.
Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.